Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I'm here with
Howard Jacobson of Sick to Fit and Plant Yourself.
And today we just want to talk about the questions that people ask themselves. And there's one question that people ask themselves about overeating, which I think is more damaging than anything else. And that question is, why can't I stop overeating? And there are two reasons that I think that's a damaging question. First of all, it assumes that if you knew why, that it would fix it. I know why I had the problems that I had. I know what it was in my upbringing. I know the mistakes that my mother made by giving me chocolate Bosco syrup instead of hugging and loving me when I was upset or needed to play or needed some healthy food. But it didn't really make a difference in terms of recovering. As a matter of fact, in some ways it made it worse. So that's one reason. The other reason is when you are focused on why can't I blank? Why can't I stop overeating? You're telling your brain to collect evidence that you can't stop overeating. So the quest is leading you to the wrong place in the first place, and the quest is causing you to collect evidence that you can't do it, which will cause you to develop a failure identity, which will cause you to continue overeating worse and worse as the years go by. And I prefer people ask, how can I stop overeating instead? That's what I prefer. What do you think, Howie?
Absolutely. I train my coaches to almost never start a question with the word why, right? Because when I ask you a why question, I immediately create a little undercurrent of defensiveness, right? Glenn, why did you choose this topic?
Right. Defend your choice.
Right. As opposed to the same question, Glenn, what led you to choose this topic? Same function, but a very different emotional impact.
Interesting.
Right.
Yep.
So asking why, it feels like curiosity. It's actually presupposing a judgment. It begins with the attack.
It also makes you feel like you're in school and that there's a right answer. And if there's only one right answer, then you engage a type of convergent thinking, and it's fear-based. It's like you're in a mathematics class and almost like the teacher's going to slap you with a ruler if you get your times tables wrong.
Yeah.
But if you ask me what led me to choose that topic, implied in that is, Glenn, why might you have chosen this topic? What's on your mind about this topic and other things? What are the vast possibilities of things that we could talk about and explore together to become curious and intrigued about that would lead us to both have a better life and a better perspective going forward? It's the difference between asking what is and what might be. A lot of times I will tell people that if they want to solve problems, overeating being one of them, and I ask them a question, I don't know isn't really a viable answer. You can't allow I don't know to be a stopping point. You need to be able to say what it might be or what occurs to you. You need to have an attitude of speculation with intrigue in order to figure out the way forward.
One of the things I learned from Peter Bregman to counter when someone says, I don't know, is what if you did know?
That's what I do also. I'll tell them, I believe you when you say you don't know, but what if you did know?
Yeah. It reminds me when I was a school teacher, I taught at a Quaker school, and every week they have something called Meeting for Worship, which is like basically an hour of sitting in silence. And whenever anyone is moved to speak, like the official Quaker thing is like, the Spirit of God rises within you and you become a vessel. That's kind of like a high bar, right, for a 9-year-old. So there were lots of kids who were really shy to speak in Meeting for Worship. And so we'd hear from the same people over and over again. And so to solve it, the teachers got together and we decided to create something called afterthoughts, which is, okay, Meeting for Worship is over. Now, does anyone have anything to add? And the only difference between how people spoke in Meeting for Worship and how they spoke in afterthoughts was that they spoke after that sentence.
Interesting.
It just lowered the bar, lowered the pressure, made it easier to give an answer.
Right. You could even extend this rather than saying, how can I stop? You could ask, how might I stop? What occurs to me about how I might stop overeating? And then you're opening up your mind to possibilities and options with intrigue to come up with a unique solution for yourself. Right.
And something else, and I think I heard this from you when you were doing the ICCA, the Coach Training Academy. And I remember when I was a brand new school teacher, the hockey coach did this after a terrible loss, is to go in the opposite direction and say, if you wanted to keep overeating, what are some things you would do?
Yeah.
If you wanted to make sure you never stopped overeating.
One of the best antidotes to convergent thinking, which is seeking the right answer, is to seek the wrong answer. And I found that kind of paradoxical information, it just removes that self-critical censor so thoroughly that if you flip the problem on its head and you write out 20 ways you could make yourself overeat more, inherent in those reasons and in the energy behind them are going to be some pretty brilliant ideas about how you could stop.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to add is that there is a really good use for why questions. And it's whenever you want someone to defend the indefensible, sort of. Right? So I'm coaching someone and they haven't been following through. So I might ask, so why would you even want to keep coaching? It sounds like you don't really want to lose weight. Why would you want to keep trying? And so then I get their mind looking for, sort of jujitsu. Now they're looking to convince themselves of the thing I want them to convince them of, rather than looking for opposite reasons.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, okay, buddy, another really fascinating conversation. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No. Why do you ask?
What else might you want to say about it?
Yeah.
Does anything else occur to you?
I would say, is this good self-talk or bad self-talk? Like, how would this sound coming from adult to a child? We all hear the why as children being disciplined. And so to kind of broaden it, like any time I'm talking to myself and I can feel the energy of judgment, the energy of meanness, of putting myself down, anything that generates even a molecule of shame or guilt or anxiety, I know that's coming from the food monster, the survival drive, the part of me that isn't really interested in my well-being, because just based on the fact that I know how those questions function.
Well, thanks, buddy. This was great, as always.
I love talking to you, man.
Love talking to you, too. Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Until next time.
All right.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.